Hello again. In this section of our video, I want to talk with you about the narrative that's found in both Appian's letter and in 1 Corinthians. The narrative in an ancient letter is a brief history that leads up to the writing of the letter. It describes what's been happening in the sender's life that leads the sender to write the letter. In the case of Appian's letter, this narrative is found in the words, "When I came to Mycenae, I received as traveling money from Caesar 3 pieces of gold, and it's well with me." In 1 Corinthians, the narrative is again longer than in Appian's letter and more elaborate, as was true of the prayer of thanksgiving. The history, the circumstance prompting Paul to write, is a report that has come to him from Chloe's people, that there's quarreling going on among all of you. The people of Chloe's household aren't named, but they're either members of her own personal family or servants sent as her delegates on business to Ephesus, from where 1 Corinthians is written, sometime around 55 AD. The name Chloe is a woman's name, and Chloe is obviously a woman of apparent importance and status at Corinth. She is conducting business for a household in Corinth and in Ephesus. The report Paul receives seems, from the way he responds to it in the first 4 chapters of 1 Corinthians, to have involved 2 interrelated issues. First, the way wisdom was being understood and misunderstood at Corinth. Wisdom in both the Old and New Testaments, as I've said before, can be defined as guidance about how one should live life with God. 1 Corinthians is a letter that reflects differences between Paul and the Corinthians, and between the Corinthians themselves about how to do that in all kinds of concrete situations. The second issue that's addressed in the first 4 chapters in a foundational way that's important for understanding the rest of the letter has to do with comparisons that are being made at Corinth between teachers of wisdom, teachers who are teaching the Christians at Corinth how to live life with God in Christ. These differences have developed into groups or parties or factions. Paul, Apollos, Cephas, and Christ, if the words "I belong to Christ" are not sarcastic. All of these are being regarded as teachers of wisdom, evaluated in terms of their teaching and the wisdom they present. One group says, "I belong to Paul," but Paul in his narrative doesn't identify himself with them or distinguish his group in any way from the other groups. A second group says, "I belong to Apollos." And Acts 18 and 19 mention a visit to Corinth made by a man named Apollos, a Hellenized Jewish Christian. And Acts characterizes the teaching of Apollos, based on his ability to interpret the Old Testament, as eloquent, wise, powerful. A third group says, "I belong to Peter," and it's certainly possible Peter, too, has visited Corinth, for Corinth is the most important city at this time in Greece, and it is the way city between Asia Minor or modern-day Turkey and the city of Rome, if you're traveling by ship or by land. A fourth group says, "I belong to Christ," and this may be Paul's addition, sarcastic, rhetorical, or people may have even said, "I belong to no human teacher, I belong only to Christ." With a series of rhetorical questions issuing out of his conviction and passion, Paul will respond to these misplaced allegiances and the divisions that have developed because of them. Do the Corinthians believe the presence of Christ is somehow divided up among them, so that some have more than others? Do they believe their allegiance is due to anyone who wasn't crucified for them? Have they forgotten in whose name they were baptized? Paul asks all of these questions in his narrative section at the end.